Well, good morning, guys. It's Thor's Axe, and what I'm going to get ready to do here is I'm going to go ahead and prime 100 pieces of brand new brass here. And don't worry, you won't have to sit through the whole thing. I use Winchester, components. I find that Winchester components are, pretty much consistent, and it's well made, value priced. I mean, you're not going to pay $1 million for empty brass, and it's it's good quality. I mean, that's kind of like the main thing that you're trying to do here. You want to get good quality. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and prime 100 pieces of brass. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and go with the 44 caliber 180 grain XTPs, and I want to load 50 rounds of those. And then what I want to do is I want to load 50 rounds of the 430 Keith type bullets, and we're going to be using 6.4 grains of unique powder. And I already looked it up in the book. That's kind of a mediocre load out of a 3-inch barrel. That's about 800 feet per second, which is fine. That's good enough. I mean, that's about as fast as you need to, push those, hollow points. So anyway, I'll go ahead and get started here. Get the ball rolling here. Some guys, will buy brand new brass, and they'll go ahead and they won't size it. They'll just go ahead and flare the necks, and then go ahead and press the bullets in. And I've done that before, and I've found that sometimes the neck tension on the bullet doesn't stay consistent that way. And so what I've found to do is that I take the decapping pin, out of the sizing die, and what I do is I just go ahead and resize them, just give them a quick run through, on my resizing die, and that way everything pretty much stays pretty consistent. I really don't like this Lee hand primer. They could have did a better job with the way that the tray loads. If you notice something, I don't know if you guys can see or not, but all your primers have got to go down this little chute. And what they're doing is they're trying to make it a better, a better design, a safer design, in case you should set one off by accident, and it's not gonna flash back. It has this little blocking thing here and whatnot. But this tray design, before you know it, you run out of primers. So anyway, I'm gonna continue on here, and get these all primed. And then what we'll do is we'll head out to the bench, and we'll go ahead and we'll resize. And then we're going to flare the necks of the cases, and then we're going to get the Lee auto powder measure going, and get it set up for 6.4 grains bullseye, not bullseye, but unique, and get the ball rolling there, get them all charged, and then start working on the bullet part. So anyway, when I get back, we'll be out there, okay? So anyway, this is Thor's Axe, and I'll be right back. And so you guys stay tuned. Be right back. Well, hey guys, we're back. We're out in the garage here, and just got done priming. So we got all the primers ready to set. One thing I like about Winchester brass is that they do a good job on the flash hole. I mean, I've seen brass that, there's literally a flap, that comes up from them punching out the flash hole. And, Winchester does a really good job at, getting in there and making sure that that flashing is taken care of as much as possible. I mean, for, a production run, brass that's not drilled. I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to show you a little bit about, what Fortune Cookie was talking about a little. He was talking earlier on presses and the alignment and all that stuff. As old as this press is, as old as this press is, look at that. I mean, I don't know if you guys see it or not, or I see it or whatever, but there's hardly any deflection at all. We're not getting any, real misalignment here. And that's as straight as it needs to be. I mean, the old girl here was probably made back in the 1970s, and, with all this fancy CNC machining we have, and, we can make things faster and better, and guys, I'm going to tell you something. I'm a real supporter of, the apprenticeship. The father to son way of, teaching machining, it's not, there are things about machining that you can't learn about in college. You got to have hands-on experience, and that experience being handed down through the generations of what to look for and getting the feel of the machine. That's the main thing. I mean, that this is about as perfect as you're gonna get. I mean, we're dealing with tolerances here about the shell holder. We're dealing with tolerances here about this insert. This insert is threaded, and the threads, the way the threads are cut, can be off a little bit. Just a little bit. When they cut the threads, the tooling had had a burr on it, or something that you couldn't really see with by just looking at it. And there might be a little bit more taper to one side of the pitch of the threads, and that can cause misalignment. It's not necessarily the bore alignment. It can be the way that it threads in. And then one thing that I read about years and years and years ago is that when you're dealing with 14 by 7 threads, it's very hard to get the dies to set straight on, with the ram, because of the thread pitch. And so when you start getting into, wanting that perfect alignment, the Bonanza, press that Cookie has, that's about as good as you're going to get. Other than that, by going with an arbor press, where you're actually forcing the die down over the brass and then, ejecting it that way, where you have a perfectly flat base, a perfectly flat pushing point, and a perfectly flat ram, to push it down. But for all practical purposes, reload ammunition on this thing. I haven't seen any accuracy issues, even at long range. My 600-yard loads, all the way out to 1,000 yards, I've loaded on this press, and I've had real good success with it. So maybe I got lucky. So anyway, I'm going to continue on, just putting this brass, putting the brass through the sizing die. That way they're all the same. We got consistency in our brass. And then we'll start flaring the necks, So when we come back, we'll start flaring the necks, and once I get all the necks flared, we'll go ahead and start, charging powder. So we'll be back in a few. Well, hey guys, here we are, and we got all our necks flared. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be feeding them into the Lee auto drum and charging them with 6.4 grains of unique powder. We're going to be loading this with the 180 grain XTP bullet. And the reason why I went and decided to go with the XTP with 6.4 is we're right in there about 800 feet per second. And, you know, that's about where I want to be, you know. I'll tell you one thing, it takes a little setting up, a little goofing around with, but, you know, this little powder measure here, you know, once you get it set and, you know, you're throwing a consistent charge with it, you know, it works pretty good. You know, I mean, it's not, you know, it's probably not the most fanciest thing you ever seen in the world, but, you know, it does work good, and, you know, it does exactly what I want it to do. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load, throw, you know, 50 charges, and then once we're kind of done with that, we'll come back and we'll start setting up our bullet length and our bullet crimp and get these rounds loaded. I want to go ahead and throw this on the scale and see how we're doing here. We're splitting less than like 1/10 of a grain. I'll get it over here on the scale. There we go. Yeah, we're splitting less than 1/10 of a grain there. I'm not worried about that. That's, you know, that's fine. And besides that, this load right here, this is like, you know, it's kind of the middle of the road, you know, load for the 44 Special. So I'm not really worried about that sort of thing going on. So anyway, when we come back, we'll be going ahead and moving onward and upward, and you know, pressing some bullets into these cases and getting them crimped. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and go with the 180 grain. This is another rare time that you're going to see me using jacketed bullets. The reason why I went and decided to go ahead and load these up and, you know, get them loaded into some cases is I want to be able to get, you know, what performance and what kind of accuracy I'm going to get out of the 180 grain bullet. I was a little put off by the accuracy I was getting before, and I was using HS6, I think. You know, I have to go back and look at that over, but you know, overall, I think unique is the powder that we're going to go with. It's economical. I mean, we're only using, you know, 6.4 grains. I mean, there's 7,000 grains in a pound, so, you know, I mean, we're going to get a lot of shooting. So, you know, not a big deal. And besides that, I bought the jacketed bullets. Might as well use them, you know. So, anyway, when I get back, we'll go ahead and we'll continue on and finish this up. Till then. Okay, guys, we're back, and I checked all my cases after I went ahead and charged them. You know, 6.4 grains of unique and 180 grain XTP. And what I've done is I've already took the liberty to go ahead and adjust the sizing die and the bullet depth. So all I got to do is just press them in there, you know, and that crimps them the whole bit. This is what we end up with, you know. That should, you know, this kind of doubles also as a good, you know, hunting round. You know, I mean, you know, it's not just, you know, practical practice, you know, for self-defense, but, you know, you can also use these hollow points, you know, as you know, your hunting rounds. So, you know, that's more than enough. That's it, you know, 800 feet per second. You know, we're right in there. You know, I mean, that's about what these bullets are designed to perform at. And, you know, all good things, man. That's it. All good things. I'll get these all loaded up and, you know, get them all boxed up and packaged and labeled. And then get them ready for the range. kind of excited to see how these are going to shoot, you know, in a little Bulldog. One thing I have is I have another, 50 rounds that I'm going to go ahead and load, and I'm really indebted to Rick. Rick over there at Aardvark Enterprise. He, anything that I need, he's got it. And a lot of times I'll just start a discussion with him, and the next thing you know, I'm walking out with two bags of bullets. Here, try these. So, what I want to do, I know that, during this video segment, I said I was going to go ahead and use the 429, 421 Lyman bullet, size to 430. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Rick's bullets instead. These are the 240 grain flat nose, round nose bullets. And what he was talking about, if you guys can see, this area right in here, this is your bearing surface. This is what's going to make contact with your lands and grooves. And if you notice something, the rebate, okay, on the bevel base here is very scant. It's at a very scant angle. All it does is just sort of round off a little bit on the end. And this is what he was showing me, is that so you're getting more bullet weight on the lands and grooves. And that's what guys have been noticing about this bullet, is that it's fairly accurate because of that. Flat-based bullets always shoot better than bevel-based bullets. You've heard that before, in the way of, ranges out to about 300 yards with rifle bullets. One thing I wanted to show you was that, these are 180 grain. These are the Hentley and Gibbs number 63. Now, if you look at the bearing surface, this is for the 45 ACP. This is a target load, target round. This bearing edge right here is very small. I mean, you have very, little, engagement with the lands and grooves, and the bevel base on the end is cut at a lot more steeper of an angle, and this is where this area right in here, this is where your engagement with your lands and grooves is actually going to stop. And your bevel base isn't going to go, it's not going to make contact with with the lands and grooves. One thing though that I have a theory about with this particular bullet is that when the bullet leaves the muzzle, this edge right here, because of its angle, okay, it shapes the blast in a certain way, so where when the pistol recoils, the 1911, it recoils, it comes straight back, okay, and it doesn't have a real flat blast to it. It angles it this way, sort of like a shaped charge. And that's kind of like the key to accuracy in some ways, because of the way the bullet shoots, not so much as your lands and grooves engagement and that sort of thing. I know that I feel like I'm kind of talking backwards, because here I am telling you about the engagement. Well, this is a whole different caliber, and it may react differently. Believe it or not, that bullet right there, more matches have been won throughout the United States in Bullseye because of this bullet right here. And Rick makes these. It's his #1 seller for Bullseye. 185 grain Henley and Gibbs 63. That is one accurate bullet. I don't think you're going to get any more accuracy out of a bullet than this, especially if you're in that charge weight with Bullseye powder of 3.5 to 3.8 grains, which is, that's the range that you're going to shoot your Bullseye matches in, for a powder load with Bullseye. So anyway, so I'm going to continue on, get all these all loaded up, get to the end here, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load some of these up from Rick. Aardvark Enterprises, you just go online, you know, and you put it in your search engine, you know, Aardvark Enterprises, and there's going to be a number of different Aardvark Enterprises out there. And what you want to do is you want to go to the one of, you know, custom cast bullets. I think Yelp, you know, will take you there. It's in Paulsbo, Washington, Poulsbo, and you know, that's the one that you want to get at. And here's another thing too about Rick. I don't, you know, I feel him owed, you know, a debt of gratitude. He can make any bullet that you want in any sizing that you want. Okay, if you have a particular mold that you like, that's like a 2-cavity mold, he has adapters for Lyman and I think Seiko and RCBS that he can put in his machine, and he can make that bullet for you and then size it to the diameter that you want. So, you know, if you just recently moved into an apartment and you don't have room to cast anymore and that sort of thing, you know, you can actually call Rick, send him your mold, and he will make all those bullets and lube them and size them and everything, package them back up and get them back out to you. He charges a little extra for that because it's, you know, he's doing a custom thing. But, you know, I think pound for pound, his prices are competitive. He has, you know, good customer, you know, relations. All you got to do is just call him. And if you get his messages, you get on his message, you tell him what you want, give him a callback number, he'll call you back, and he'll get the ball rolling on making you some bullets, you know, and, you know, he'll talk to you about, you know, what kind of different bullets he has and that sort of thing. So, you know, he's all about that, you know, interconnecting on the internet. You know, he's got a small area for his casting shop that he's using, but you know, that really doesn't hold him back. He's a very organized guy. He has a place for everything in there, and you know, you just tell him how much you want, and he'll make them. And I think that there's a limit of like 1,000 rounds for custom bullets, but you can buy packages of bullets from him, you know, in the 500 round pack, and you know, that's pretty much it. Let's see if I've got a Aardvark box sitting around here. Nope. No, I don't have an Aardvark box. Nope. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, look him up on the internet, and you can get his address and contact information and that sort of thing. I really highly recommend his bullets. He's a good metallurgist, and that's another thing too. If you want bullets that are made out of pure lead and 10% tin, all you gotta do is tell him. He'll make them that way. You know, I mean, he's got an excellent machine. He's got a great, you know, lubricizer, commercial. You know, this is all commercial equipment. He's not out here just doing stuff, you know, by hand. And he can crank it out for you. So anyway, that's my pint. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we're going to go ahead and load some of Rick's bullets. So we'll be right back. Well, hey guys, I'm back. Now, I just got done, you know, charging all the cases that I'm going to use for Rick's 240 grain flat round nose cowboy load, and got my handy dandy little flashlight here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check all my cases, make sure that they're all uniform. You know, we got a uniform amount of powder in each one of them. So there we go. We're all good. By the way, if you go down to Harbor Freight, sometimes if you know, check the Harbor Freight, you know, flyers, they give these things away for free. All you got to do is just go in there with a little coupon, they'll give you one. So, you know, that's how I got that one. Actually, I've got 2 or 3 of these. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll remove the powder measure. Okay. We got that going for us. All right. We'll move that over here. And a little powder measure funnel thing, and just put Put that right back in the can. One thing that's kind of nice about Unique is that you know, you're using 6.4 grains per shot, 7,000 grains in a pound. So you know, you're getting good economic, you know, use out of it. You're not having to use a whole bunch of powder, you know, and it's performing the way you want it to. Let's get the powder measure out of there. Sorry about this. I should have done this before I actually turned the camera on. But it's, you know, it's pretty easy. I mean, you know, easy deal. Kind of focus your attention over here. I just made this out of some scrap wood, you know, and I went and chucked this, you know, chucked up the bit that I needed, a Forster bit, to cut the holes that I needed. And I made a little tray, you know, a little rack, and there you go. I mean, you know, you don't have to find some place to lay it down. There it is. You know, and you can assort your different dyes and the things that you want in there, you know, the ones that you don't use that much or whatever, and you know, you can just throw them in there and boom, you know, makes it all handy. So anyway, we're going to seat some bullets here. I normally will rooster jacket these. You know, just coat them with rooster jacket, let them set over a few days, and I'm not going to do that, you know, with these. I'm just going to go ahead and shoot them anyway. I didn't get any leading the last time that I shot these, but here's a little tip, you know, right down from Ken Waters out of his you know, out of his book, and yeah, you get some Imperial sizing die wax, and all you got to do, you know, put a little bit of that on there and rub it on the bearing surface. That's it. Leaves a little wax coating there, and what it does is it helps the transition between your, you know, cylinder mouth and the force and cone. It gives it just a little bit of, you know, a little bit of lubricity there to, you know, enter the force and cone and into the lands and grooves without, you know, forcing the lead. That's where leading comes from. Leading comes from, you know, the pressure that it takes to force it down the barrel. And also, if you're undersized too, you can get shaving of lead in there and gas cutting. So that's why it's important that we, you know, size our bullets to the proper size. But that transition there is also, there's another thing that takes place there as well, and that's the hammering effect of the lead, you know, into the metal. And the slicker you make that transition there, the better. So anyway, let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing to cooperate with us here. I want to adjust this so where I'm down in the crimp groove. I'm going to back it back out so I ain't crimping it. I want to adjust that bullet so where, you know, we're down there on the crimp groove. Don't want to press it in too far. And as you can see, you know, that's an optical illusion. It looks like it's in there, but actually it's not. You can go in there just a little bit more. Yeah. That's why I use my fingernail. I can feel that. There we go. Now we're there. That's where we want it. So we're going to go ahead and put our crimp groove in there, and you know, now it's going to go ahead and crimp it. We're going to back this back out. Boom. Now we got the crimp we want. Set that bullet seating stem down to the length that we want the bullet to be pressed into the case. and the crimp to be applied all at one shot, you know. There you go. You know, Rick's Cowboy, you know, flat round nose, 240 grain bullet loaded with 6.4 grams of unique. I'll get started on this and go ahead and get these loaded up and get these packaged. Get them ready to roll, guys, you know. Get out there to the range and do a little more shooting, you know. That's what it's all about. I told you guys that I was going to set up the Dillon press, and I've really been kind of debating on whether or not I want to go ahead and buy some Dillon dies, you know, for the press. I've been using, you know, Lee dies, you know, for the 44 in the Dillon press. The problem is that Dillon made their tool heads thick enough so where, you know, if you use a Lee die, you get very, very few threads left on the top in order to put a lock ring on. And, you know, that's just the way it goes. I mean, maybe there's a rivalry there. You know, they advertise you can use any, you know, 7 by 14 dies will work, da-da-da-da. Well, you know, one thing I found out too is that if you want to use the Lee dies, you take one of these locking rings, you know, that comes with a Dillon, and these ones here are flat, and what you can do is just go ahead and screw that on there. You can get a couple of threads on there, and boom, you're good, you know. Make sure you're adjusting your dies and everything. So, you know, if you want to use Dillon, you know, lock rings on Lee dies, that'll work as well, you know. So I've been kind of, you know, in and out on that. I didn't want to tear down my 550 and then set it up for 44 and do all that. So anyway, I'm rambling on. I'll let you guys go. I'll get this edited, get it loaded up, and get this on the internet tonight. And then we can make an appointment to get out there to the range and shoot this stuff up. All right. So this is Thorzax, and I'm signing out. And good shooting to you. My next video will probably be out there at the range.